Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Australia Live by Armenian Media. My name's Nanor, Shokayan. Today we're joined by Michael Kolokossian, the Political Affairs Director of the Armenian National Committee of Australia, to talk about the upcoming events for this year's Armenian Genocide Commemoration. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
Thanks, Nanor.
Would you like to start off by giving us a brief overview of the upcoming events for this year's Armenian Genocide Commemoration?
Yeah, of course. So, as it is every year, April and May is a packed month. There are several events that have been organised this year by the Armenian Genocide Commemorative Committee. And those events are being organised right across the country. We've got events organised in New South Wales, Victoria and ACT. There's also been some smaller commemorations in Perth that have just recently happened, which aren't necessarily on our calendar, but the community in Perth have undertaken. So those events start on the 24th of April. This is the calendar that a lot of people may have seen on social media, but we do have the March for Justices in Sydney and Melbourne on the 24th, this Sunday. The Sydney one is at 3 p.m. Starting at St Mary's Cathedral, and the Melbourne one is starting at 2 p.m. on the corner of Nicholson and Albert Street. So those March for Justices are happening in conjunction with the Assyrian and Greek communities this year. So those are on this Sunday, the 24th of April. Then we have church services being held at pretty much every Armenian church in the country. We've got the church services in Wentworthville, Chatswood. We have the church services in Melbourne as well. So those are happening this Sunday. And then following that, we have our Armenian Genocide Commemoration, the National Armenian Genocide Commemoration. That is taking place on Tuesday, the 26th of April. At 8 p.m. and that is also organised by the National Armenian Genocide Commemoration Committee. The keynote feature for that event is the Human Rights Ombudsman of the Republic of Artsakh, Mr. Keram Stepanyan, and he will be talking about the continuing genocide that is taking place and ethnic cleansing in the Republic of Artsakh. That video is a live stream. That's a 1-hour program that is going to include an address regarding the political advocacy that's been going on, and statements from politicians as well as cultural performances. Following that, we also have events, as I mentioned, in the ACT. One of the events that we have coming up is Armenia, Australia and the Armenian Genocide. That is being hosted in Canberra, the nation's capital, on Wednesday, the 27th of April at Manning Clark House. It's being hosted by prominent Australian academics who are quite engaged in the Armenian genocide issue and have done a lot of research. Those academics include Dr. Vikem Babkenyan, Professor Vikem Babkenyan, Professor Peter Stanley, and Dr. Deborah Mason. So they are hosting that event themselves. It's a panel discussion, so I urge all members of our community in Canberra to head down to that. Then we have our Western Sydney Armenian Genocide Commemoration happening on the 27th of April, a Wednesday again, at the Panoyan Centre, the Armenian Cultural Panoyan Centre. Then we have 2 commemorations being hosted by our councils, Willoughby City Council in conjunction with the Armenian Apostolic Church in Chatswood, which is on the 24th of April. And then the Ryde City of Council is hosting their Armenian Genocide Commemoration event on Saturday, the 30th of April. Those 2 events are taking place by the council, organised by them for the community. And then the final event that we have in our calendar is the Victorian Armenian Genocide Commemoration, which is taking place on the 1st of May. So it's a very busy calendar, a lot of events for our community to attend, to watch, to pay their respects to the 107th on the 107th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide this year.
Yeah, it's wonderful to see events across the nation. So it's really good.
And we are adding to that calendar as the Armenian National Committee. Should there be events hosted in South Australia for the Armenian community in South Australia, should there be events in Queensland, anywhere else in the country, those events will be added to the calendar. So stay tuned to the Armenian National Committee of Australia's Facebook page, and you'll receive updates to any other events that are announced in the coming days.
Wonderful, yeah, that'll be great. The march in particularly has been an event that has been organised every year since the 100th anniversary, the March for Justice. Can you give us some further details on the marches this year and also the particular importance of it this year?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, those marches have been organised every year since the 100th anniversary. The first one we did was in Chatswood, and then every year since it's been in Sydney's central business district. So, and also in Melbourne as of late, we've been hosting these March for Justices in the city of Melbourne. So, I do want to go into a bit of the details a bit more on these two marches. So I did mention roughly that they're both on the 24th of April. The Sydney March is at 3 p.m. We have buses leaving from several different Armenian community organisations, halls and churches. There's the buses leaving from the Smithfield Scouts Hall, the Hominet Men Navasat Smithfield Scouts Hall, buses leaving from the Hominet Men Ararat Ride Scouts Hall, the Willoughby Armenian Cultural Centre right here, buses leaving from the Wentworthville Armenian Holy Trinity Church as well. So those buses, the times that the departure time, of those buses are on flyers, and that'll be transporting participants to and from the march. The march is commencing at 3 p.m. at St. Mary's Cathedral, and as I mentioned, it's with the Assyrian and Greeks. And a similar format is also in process for our Melbourne Armenian community. There's buses being organised from the church, so following the church service there, they can go down. This year, the march is of significance, as it is every year. But last year, as was mentioned at our March for Justice, the Prime Minister's statement had taken a step further than previous statements that he has made that, a lot of members of our community have stated that was quite disrespectful. And we welcome this advancement in his statement. And I think our community has welcomed that. However, it didn't have the G word, genocide, in there. So last year's statement did acknowledge that, the crimes that were committed against the Armenians were dispossession, deportation and death. It did mention that outpouring of humanitarian support from the Australian society in 1915 to 1923 and in the following years. However, it didn't include that word genocide. So I think this year's march is of extreme importance because obviously the ANC has been doing a lot of work preparing in lieu of that statement. And, should the Prime Minister use the word genocide, it'll be a great opportunity for our community to celebrate that advancement and that step forward, the next step following his statement last year. And should it not include the word genocide, it's an opportunity for our community to voice their concern and voice their displeasement with that statement. He has taken a step since last year, and we expect him to take another step and finally recognise the crimes, the first genocide of that 20th century, as an Armenian genocide. Australia last year commemorated the Armenian genocide prior to US President Joe Biden's statement. So, some may say, oh, America did it so this year, But irrespective of that, it is our duty to either, celebrate that advancement in the statement or, raise our concern at this March for Justice, and that's what this is for. So, our community is very active when it comes to this issue, and we want them this is their time to have that voice and to be heard.
Definitely. Well, we're very hopeful he will finally use the G word this year. So I wanted to ask about, I know the Armenian Genocide Commemoration Committee is organising their live stream event for the annual commemoration. It's going to be via Facebook and YouTube live stream again this year for the third year in a row. Can you explain the impact of having this as a live stream as opposed to an in-person event?
Yeah, so Tuesday the 26th of April.
Yes,
that is the live stream at 8 p.m. So our community and the broader Australian society can watch this live stream from the comfort of their own home. Now, there is nothing like gathering together and honouring the memory and the sacrifice that our ancestors went through, and we do, that is a big part of what these commemorations are about. But as you mentioned, there is an impact that this sort of a live stream event does have. And following the COVID pandemic and not being able to gather, we did see that as a result. So this is the third year. And one of the big impacts that we've seen is these live stream commemorations have been viewed by over 15,000 people every year. that's you could imagine in a hall you're kind of restricted to the amount of people that are viewing that, but to see those numbers is really encouraging. The social media pages of the Armenian National Committee and all those community-based pages on Facebook that do have other followers, they are also viewing this. So the reach of this sort of commemorative event via a live stream simulcast on Facebook and YouTube, it's really getting our story, the Armenian genocide story, out to a further audience. So that's one of the big impacts. The second impact that I think from a political perspective a lot of people could appreciate and do appreciate is the amount of statements that we actually receive from politicians now that it is a virtual commemoration. Sorry. In the past, those commemorations have been held in certain areas in Sydney. Therefore, members in Perth or members in Victoria or Queensland haven't been able to join the Armenian community in commemorating this event. This year, we'll be announcing in the coming days the unprecedented number of politicians who are also participating in this year's virtual commemoration, and we're seeing that number increase every year as a result of doing this online. And it's also viewed by political staffers, by politicians, by government departments. So it's really important that they're watching the stories that we are telling them, and they're hearing from speakers in our community or keynotes that they can watch virtually from their own homes as well. So there is a really big impact, and I urge our community to also take part in watching this commemorative event. You can sit with your family and in the presence of your family at home and still pay your respects to those who were massacred in the genocide, and hopefully in the future we can go back to those those in-person events, but it definitely has an impact for the greater good and for the broader Australian society.
Yeah, it's wonderful to really understand what that impact is. Thanks so much for this wonderful overview you've provided of a very full calendar, which is great to see. Do you have a final message for the community as we wrap this up?
Yes, and I think the final message would be that there is a federal election coming up, and one of the things that we always talk about at our meeting with candidates who are vying for positions or in federal office in Armenian populated electorates is that the Armenian Australian community does care about this issue. Yeah. And you do. We all care about this issue. It's evident through over 50 years of advocacy. It's evident through our presence at March for Justices, our voices being heard, when you send condemnation letters or, we do care about this issue. And, for this sort of marches and commemorative events, it shows politicians that we still do care. And that until we receive that recognition, we will continue to demand more from our elected representatives and, their leaders. And we will continue to pay respects, even after genocide recognition in this country, we will continue to pay respects. But until then, we will be more demanding and, we'll fight for that recognition. And so, that I would urge our community to be present at these commemorative events, to be present at these demonstrations. Our actions do speak louder than our words. We need to be there standing, calling for genocide recognition. And let's not forget, I think a really, really important point is, we're not just standing for recognition of past genocides. We're standing up and marching for the prevention of future genocides, which I think is really important, and the prevention of future atrocities in the Republic of Artsakh. Now, I can go on a lot about that and the importance of coming to this demonstration, not only sending a message to the government that we want genocide recognized, but that their failure to recognize these genocides are leading to the modern manifestations of these crimes. Yeah. So there is so many reasons why it's important that our community is there, so many reasons, and I can't underestimate the importance of your presence there. So that would be my message to the community. That would be my message to young Armenians, to old Armenians, any Armenian is, to show that this issue is still at the forefront of our community, and we will continue to fight for the recognition of past genocides, the prevention of future genocides, and we will stand with, that Armenian cause.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. Thanks so much for your time and for the continued efforts and the hard work of the Armenian National Committee of Australia. I hope we'll see our community in unprecedented numbers at all the marches and at all the events. It's a very full calendar, and I hope our community is definitely, I'm sure they'll be supporting all the events. This has been, so that wraps us up for today. Thanks for joining, everyone. This has been Nanor Shokayan for Australia Live by Armenian Media. Thank you.
Thanks, Nanor.
Thanks, Michael.